got House TV rolling, so we got some really good stuff going. So. Yep. Okay. Well, we'll start. So, oh, great job. What do you think? Just a shame, isn't it? The House Democrats. What a shame. So, this. Are you guys running? Okay. So yeah, this is what you get when you try to work with the House Democrats. I see, and I read this stuff, and MERS has this poll. It's pretty funny. I looked at it, and in the poll it says, who's to blame for the budget not getting done, and the only options you could select were me, Governor Whitmer, Puri. You couldn't even select Brinks. I mean, MERS did not give that as an option. So we'll see. That should be an interesting poll, because I think a lot of people blame Brinks, but they can't vote that way because the last I saw, it doesn't even give you the option. So it's going to be very interesting to see that one. But I'll just say I've heard from a lot of the media how we need to work with the Democrats. So today we tried to move one of Governor Whitmer's top priorities, which was a bill to ban cell phones in schools. I think a very reasonable bill that will do that. That's something that the public wants. It's something that Republicans and Democrats want. It's one of the best. Well, let's say it this way: it's one of the most, it's one of the most popular issues I've ever seen. The public wants, no cell phones in schools. They want kids focusing on learning, not looking in their phone, playing games all the time and texting their friends. And I stood up at the State of the State when Governor Whitmer asked for the legislature to move that, and we've been working on it for a few weeks. And today we said, look, let's make an effort to work with the House Democrats. Let's try to put up this important priority of Governor Whitmer. Now, it failed, right? We couldn't get House Democrats to vote for it. And you look at it, we had a bill up today that a lot of Democrat prosecutors are calling for all over the state, Republicans and Democrats, but many Democrat prosecutors. I mean, we had a Supreme Court announce that all of these juveniles are going to have to be resentenced for major crimes. And there's a deadline coming up that they have to file by in order to have new hearings. And what most of these are going to be in Wayne County, Genesee County, Saginaw County. I've been talking to a lot of these Democrat county officials, and they're telling me that they're not going to meet these deadlines to file for these hearings because there's so many violent criminals that are about to be let out of prison. And so we thought, well, we're in today. It's going to take some time to get this done. Let's move this legislation. It's really mostly Democrat areas that are affected, but all over the state, to give our prosecutors time to file all the motions and all the cases that they need to ensure that every one of these violent criminals has a new hearing and will not get let out on the streets because of a paperwork technicality. So this is a major crisis for public safety across our state. And we didn't see a single Democrat vote for that bill today. So, it's an interesting thing because we hear the media tell us that we need to work with the Democrats. Well, we made a good faith effort to work with the Democrats today. And you see what happens with these House Democrats. They failed the bills. Not one of them voted for it. And I hope the voters hold them accountable for that. I mean, every one of those House Democrats voted against a ban on kids having phones in the classroom, and they voted to let violent criminals out on the streets. That's what they did today. It's amazing to me. And this is coming on the heels of what I thought was a very good deal, bipartisan deal on education that could have got a K through 12 budget done by July 1. And we saw House Democrats unwilling to do that too. And you don't see Senate Democrats here. We're trying to govern. We're House Republicans. We're trying to move issues that are important to the public. I mean, you read these stories about 6 bills being signed into law this year. Many people think that's a record of fewest bills. So we said, look, we can add some today, and you didn't see House Democrats go along with that. I think, it really it puts into jeopardy what we're able to do as a body when we can't get Democrats to vote for what used to be very bipartisan concepts. You go back to the governor's State of the State, where she called on Republicans and Democrats to pass this legislation that would prohibit kids from having cell phones in schools. Many Democrat counties and prosecutors asked us today to move these bills to extend their deadline so that violent criminals won't be let out of prison early because of paperwork technicalities. Now you're going to see potentially violent criminals released because of paperwork issues, because prosecutors are so backlogged in Democrat counties that they can't file all these cases on time. So, it's a concerning thing. I've got some other things that I want to talk about, but I'll just let you guys ask me what questions you have, and I'll weave it in. So, any questions? Yeah, go ahead. Oh, he raised his hand. So, no, that's okay. By the way, how many times per press conference do I call on Beth? I mean, the other reporters complain about it. Like, you're always going to Beth, you're always taking Beth's questions. So just once we're going to go to somebody else. Go ahead.
How would you characterize the dynamics of the House, the Senate, and the governor all working together? Is it cohesive? Is it not? Are you clearly experiencing some tension?
Mm-hmm.
And what do you think is kind of the drivers of some of those things?
Well, I think Governor Whitmer and I are the two leaders in this town that are trying to work to get things done. And, I give Governor Whitmer credit, right? I mean, you saw her and I went to the Oval Office earlier this year, and we asked for help for the Upper Peninsula in northern Michigan, the northern lower. And we asked them to get money to help us with northern Michigan. And we saw President Trump deliver this week with $50 million, right? And that was a big deal. That was something Governor Whitmer and I talked to him about. Now we've moved supplemental over to the Senate that would provide another $100 million of relief for that huge crisis they had up north. I mean, you talk to a lot of these communities, they spent their entire emergency service budgets already. So now we're going to have to try to get Senate Democrats to move that legislation and help give more relief to northern Michigan. So these are the kind of challenges we face. So, I give the governor credit, right? We've tried to work with her on this cell phone bill to prohibit kids from having cell phones in the classroom in schools, and House Democrats won't follow her lead. So I find it very perplexing how fractured Democrats are. I mean, you have the governor out here working with me, trying to get things done. And then it's the House Democrats and the Senate Democrats that are blocking it all. I put forward a plan to fix our roads without raising taxes by putting people above corporations. If we just stop doing all the giveaways to corporations, we can fix our roads without raising taxes. I've shown how we can do that. We moved that bill through this chamber bipartisan. That was back when Democrats were voting for reasonable policies. And you can't get the Senate to put a plan on the table. And you remember when Governor Whitmer said, Matt Hall is the only leader I've worked with who has the guts and the brains to pass a roads plan and come up with one. And the fact that the Senate Democrats are not coming up with a roads plan is putting us in a very bad situation as we move forward with a budget. I heard Governor Whitmer say last week that there's not a budget until there's a roads deal. So roads is part of the budget. I'm committed to that. Governor Whitmer's committed to that. But these legislative Democrats, they can't get their act together and support their leader and empower her, whether it's on cell phones, whether it's on on the roads, or the education budget. And it's really throwing a lot of things into turmoil here in Lansing as we're trying to move forward on a road solution and important policies that help our public safety and also help our kids learn in the classroom. Yeah, Beth. Well, I think that there were, a number of Democrats that we were trying to work with who made commitments on these bills that didn't perform, and we're really looking for partners that are going to work together across the aisle to get things done. And you look at a member when they make a commitment, they need to honor that commitment. And we did not see that from Rep. Farhat. Well, we're going to start interviewing members of the Democrat caucus to find someone that's going to help us get the budget done. We want to get a budget done on time. We want to work with, Governor Whitmer and come up with a bipartisan budget by the deadline of September 30th, and hopefully sooner on schools and roads. It's really important that we see a plan from Democrats on roads, and we want to get schools done as early as we can. And those two things really unlock the rest of the budget. And we're going to need a partner that's going to help us get things done. And we didn't see Rep. Farhat able to accomplish that, both on the budget, which you saw when he was unable to deliver on the education plan the last time we were together, and also today on some of these bills where he didn't live up to his commitments.
One more follow-up question. You had a member, Rep. Messina, didn't show up today because
Mm-hmm.
the caucus was acting on his priorities. He could have also broken that 55 vote split to get that bill passed. I guess, what are your thoughts on that? If you're removing Farhat from the committee based on his vote, I mean, is there a consideration to Messina in this too?
Well, I think, we've entrusted a lot of responsibility in Representative Farhat by making him the vice chair of the House Appropriations Committee. And we're counting on him to represent the Democrats and to help us get a deal done, a bipartisan budget deal by September 30th. And that's a lot of responsibility we put in him to accomplish that. And from what I can see, he's not getting the job done, and so we removed him. In the case of Representative DeSanta, Jim and I have been having discussions, and we have a lot of alignment on a lot of issues. I think that it's important that our members are here, and when they're not here, we have to work with who's here, right? And so we had 55 Republicans here today. We had a number of Democrats that we believed were committed to solving these problems of, prohibiting kids from using their phones in the classroom. I think it's a pretty powerful issue in our state. A lot of people believe that kids should not be using cell phones in the classroom. They should be learning. That is something that Republicans and Democrats agree on. And Governor Whitmer called for it in her State of the State, and I know a number of these House Democrats, including Rep. Farhat, were planning or telling us that they were with us on this bill. And then when we saw many of them leave or not vote, and many voted no, too. I can't believe the ones that voted no. That stood in there and voted no. I mean, who would want kids to have their cell phones in the classroom? The House Democrats, apparently. And then you look at the other vote today, on allowing violent criminals out over these paperwork technicalities, particularly in Wayne County, Genesee County, and Saginaw County, which is where a lot of these Democrats live. We had a number of them that were willing to vote with us, and apparently changed their mind throughout the day. But in particular, Rep. Farhat, we were giving him an amendment that he had asked for to to not make these, what would you say, like where, you know, where you stack the sentences. Yeah, and so he didn't want that. That was something that a lot of people in Wayne County, it was controversial there. So he said, basically, if you make these serve concurrently, I'll vote for the bill. So we gave that amendment, and then he had second thoughts. And I'll just say, in this business, right, the only thing you have is your word. You know, I've done a lot of deals with Democrats over the last several years, and, you know, I always followed through on the things that I said I was going to do, and we expect that of everyone, Republican and Democrat. If we have someone we can't count on to do that, then we have to make a change. And we need somebody that we really think is really going to represent the Democrats well, and somebody who can honor their commitments. That's what we want in a partner, to work together to get a bipartisan budget deal done. I mean, I think we're making so much progress with Governor Whitmer coming together on the budget, on roads, on education. You know, we attempted to help with some of her priorities today, like the cell phone ban, and we're seeing legislative Democrats stall those efforts. And I'll just say, you know, we offered a number of Democrat bills that we thought would help move the logjam today. Bills for Rep. Menser, bills for Rep. Whitwer, several other Democrats. We kind of were trying to work with their leadership on those things. And I guess my takeaway is how unreasonable these legislative Democrats are. And I think when you look at it, right, I mean, the media has been asking me, work with them, work with them. Well, I think we made a good, sincere attempt today, and you saw the results. So that's a problem, I think, for the people of Michigan, that we have legislative Democrats that won't help Governor Whitmer on her priorities, whether they're roads, getting a budget done, or prohibiting kids from having cell phones in the classroom. Yeah. Well, we're going to interview some of the other legislative Democrats. There were a lot of them that wanted the position when we selected Rep. Farhat, and we're going to have some more meetings. We want a Democrat leading the Appropriations Committee who is going to represent the Democrat perspective well, but also someone who, when they make a commitment, is going to follow through on it, because that's going to be critical to our budget process, is working with people we can trust and who honor their word. Yeah, go ahead.
Your households with agency did a projection that the Trump tax bill will get a $677 million business tax cut in Michigan. What are your reactions to that, and how that will impact the budget?
Yeah. So his question is talking about the House fiscal analysis that came through on the One Big Beautiful Bill. I'll tell you something I thought was a little interesting. So when we did the research and development tax credit, that was another bipartisan bill that we worked with Governor Whitmer on. Nobody said $100 million a year deficit or whatever, right? You know, you're cutting taxes by $100 million, incentivizing research and development. So when we look at the One Big Beautiful Bill, the fiscal impact we see is largely the result of tax cuts geared toward really advancing manufacturing and research and development. So you look at that, the majority of it is basically a research and development tax credit. Michigan is home to a lot of major research and development. That's why we passed last year an R&D tax credit. Is you look at all the automotive companies, they all have research and development facilities here. I would argue that Michigan, now under President Trump, manufacturing is coming back, and we saw that with the General Motors plant where they're going to build big ICE vehicles, whether they're the Tahoes or the big trucks. But you know, during all the years when manufacturing was moving away from Michigan, Michigan really has developed a niche as a research and development headquarters for all the big automotive companies. With these R&D tax credits, you're going to see research and development really explode all over the country. and happen in the United States. And when you talk to a lot of these companies, they have R&D headquarters in Michigan, they have them international, you know, they have them all over the place. We want that important R&D done here in Michigan, and with these research and development tax credits, it's really going to help. And then you look at these other ones, I mean, they're really spurred toward accelerating manufacturing, which is one of President Trump's main priorities. So the fiscal effects we saw were largely in those areas, and it makes sense because if you cut taxes, you're going to have an effect on revenue. But what they're not accounting for is if you get this increased research and development activity and engineering activity, and you get this increase in manufacturing that's expected under the One Big Beautiful Bill, you're going to get increased growth, and you're going to get more jobs throughout Michigan and across the country. So overall, it's a very positive thing. I think people expect that illegal aliens shouldn't get welfare. I think people believe that we should pay out accurately on food stamps only to people that are eligible. And we're going to be working through our oversight process and our appropriations processes to figure out how to get Whitmer's Department of Health and Human Services to start paying out accurately on food stamps. Because if they do that, the amount of money that we would have to spend over the cost share on food stamps goes down dramatically. So it makes sense to me, if we're paying out to people that are not eligible welfare, that there should be a penalty for that. And the way to get out of that is to pay out to the people that you're supposed to pay. And you look at it, it's very gradual. And I think that's one of the most important things that I saw in the Big Beautiful Bill is a lot of these moves are very gradual. You talk about, you know, this waste, fraud, and abuse in the Medicaid system, and some of the scams that these hospitals have come up with in order to game the system, to create taxes, to gain more money out of Medicaid. It's a very gradual decrease. So the Medicaid law was never intended to be gamed that way. But what's happening is they're just saying, look, 0.5% a year is going to go away over time, and you guys figure out a different revenue stream than gaming the Medicaid system. That was never what it was intended to do, and that's taxpayer dollars that are really being abused through that system. And work requirements are going to be a very good thing, but they're phased in, so you don't see that as part of that fiscal analysis. But, you know, people that are eligible, that are working, seeking an education, or volunteering their time, able-bodied adults, that's what they should work, seek education, or volunteer in order to get welfare. We shouldn't have people on the system for decades sitting in their parents' basements playing video games. We shouldn't do that. It should really be reserved for the people that it was intended for, the people with the biggest needs. And what you're seeing, like in the State House, in the legislature, I mean, our Medicaid budget is about $25 billion out of the $83 billion budget. I looked it up. It's about 30% of the budget is Medicaid. And if you guys should do some research on this to see what was it 10 years ago? You know, what was it 20 years ago? And what you're going to see is this is really becoming an expensive program for the federal government and states, and so we need to ensure that it's protected for the people that need it the most, not illegal aliens and not able-bodied adults that won't work, volunteer, or seek education. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, what was it? That's pretty cool. We've never had thunder. Did you get that on Channel 3? That'd be cool, wouldn't it? So that's cool. Well, Midwesterner got it. You know, I don't think that's true. I think we actually had a tornado once. Remember that? We had the tornado drill. Those that come to my press conferences all the time. Remember we had a tornado drill? What? There was one, yeah. So we've had a lot of these, but anyway, to answer your question, you know, I mean, I think the impact, when you see the analysis, it's only looking at the tax reduction. It's not looking at the effect of increased R&D, increased engineering, increased manufacturing. The Trump tax cuts are intended to really accelerate manufacturing and accelerate the economy. And also, I'll point out the no tax on tips, no tax on unemployment, and no tax on overtime, or no tax on Social Security, no tax on tips, and no tax on overtime. Sorry, I have so many things in my head. But those are important provisions. And, you know, one thing I think we need to look at in this budget, so a lot of the business tax credits that are in there that you talked about are like tied to the federal tax credits. So when the federal tax credit on R&D or on manufacturing, it's like automatic to the state. But these individual tax cuts on, you know, on overtime, on Social Security, and on tips, you know, they're still going to pay a state tax if we don't do anything. The federal tax is largely going away, but they're still going to pay a state tax. So I do think we need to look at that for taxpayers. I think it would really help working families if we could do something to really tie the state taxes to the no tax on tips, the no tax on Social Security, and the no tax on overtime. So we're going to look at the fiscal effects of that as well. We need to eliminate the waste, fraud, and abuse. And we really need to set better priorities, and we can fix the roads, we can fund the Public Safety Trust Fund, we can bring the government workers back to work, we can also do record education, and we can find some room for tax cuts and a roads deal without raising taxes. We can do it, we just have to set good priorities.
Besides the substituting out concurrent for consecutive sentencing, what else was agreed to with Rep. Farhat that he was going back on by voting no?
Well, I think, you know, you look at the vote today on the other bill with the cell phones. You know, I really thought he'd follow Governor Whitmer on that policy. And when you look at, you know, we had a real opportunity earlier this year to get a school budget done by July 1. And I think we came up with a plan that really was attractive to both parties. And when we saw House Democrats put politics over getting a school budget done by July 1, we just aren't seeing out of him what we need in a Democrat partner to get this budget done by September 30th. Any other? Yeah, go ahead.
As you were mentioning giving aid to illegal immigrants, do you
Yeah.
have any comments on the investigation that's happening with Western Michigan and they're giving exclusive scholarships and benefits to illegal immigrants?
Yeah, no, it was an interesting thing. So when I was a student at Western, we actually registered some strong disagreement with these kind of scholarships that were going on at Western. They were giving scholarships to illegal aliens in some cases even 20 years ago, and that was actually an issue that I raised a lot of attention about as a college student there. So to see President Trump finally, through Linda McMahon, who I met with last week, you know, to see her coming in now and saying, look, we're going to have an investigation into some of these scholarships, I think it's a good thing. We shouldn't be giving out scholarships to illegal aliens. We also shouldn't be giving out scholarships that discriminate against citizens. And so it's a very good development. And I hope WMU stops it, and University of Michigan stops their policies too. So it's been 20 years in the making. It's great to see President Trump and Linda McMahon taking action on that. Yeah, back here. Who's negotiating the budget? Well, it depends on the budget. You see whether it's subcommittee chairs, whether it's the appropriations chair, or in some cases me. And depending on the subject, we're all negotiating parts of the budget.
So who is going to be representing Democrat because you keep speaking about the governor? She notably does not vote on the budget. I understand that conversations with the Senate aren't great, and a lot of your conversations with Democrats have been through Representative Farhat. So how has this development stalled budget conversations further if we are at the end of July?
Well, I don't see how legislative Democrats could be doing a more poor job on negotiating this budget. I think we're having a lot of really encouraging conversations between our team and Governor Whitmer's team.
Governor Whitmer does not vote on the budget.
But she's the leader of the Democrat Party. And if the Democrats were smart, they would follow her because she's a lot more popular than the legislative Democrats are. They won their majorities because of her, and now they're abandoning her, and I don't understand why. If they were smart, they would empower her and they would support her on the budget because I think she's demonstrated that she knows how to win, and she knows how to work together. And that's certainly something that I know how to do. I've been working with her. I've been working with a lot of people. But we need to kind of step it up here with some of these legislative Democrats and empower better leaders than the ones we're seeing.
Is my confusion because it seems like we've closed down a lot of channels.
I can't hear you.
We've closed down a lot of channels for conversation. So I guess.
Yeah, I don't see that.
Who are you going to be speaking with? Are you going to start speaking more with Leader Franks?
Well, we talked to Leader Brinks quite a bit. I don't know why you're falling for these narratives. I mean, I think I just laid out to you that we literally just spent a whole day speaking to House Democrats, putting up bipartisan bills and offering priorities of their members, and they turned it all down and voted no on everything. So I don't know what to do with that, right? So. Yeah, I know, but don't you think Democrats, like, let me just ask you, I mean, when Winnie Brinks put up a bill in her caucus that we negotiated with her, that a majority of her members opposed, Republicans carried it, right? So if there are policies that both sides agree on, then legislative Democrats should vote for them. And when you go back and you look at my time as minority leader, we did that quite a bit more than you guys give us credit for. A research and development tax credit is one. The data centers is another. Go back and look at data centers. Joe Tate was very underwater on that bill. We helped him get it done. We helped him get R&D tax credit done, and there are a lot of them. There were days we came in and House Democrats didn't have 56, and we helped them get stuff done. And so we tried to apply a very similar approach today, which is, hey, we're willing to do some bills for some of your members that have made it through our committees. We're willing to work on some things that we think are bipartisan, things that Democrat prosecutors and the governor have asked for. And we're not seeing them working in a productive manner for the people of Michigan. On the Senate side, you know, I mean, there's things going on. I talked to Brinks. Bolin talks to Sarah Anthony. And we have good conversations with the governor's office. So I don't think we're shutting off channels. I don't feel that way. I think Democrats, though, are very divided between the governor, the Senate, the House, the Attorney General. They're all very divided right now. And I think that's really causing some challenges. And I think they're a party that's really trying to find their identity right now. They're a minority party and kind of a resistance party. And I hope on some of these issues we're trying to tackle that should bring people together that we get their votes. But today we didn't. Yeah. Simon, how are you doing today?
Good, how are you?
Good. You know, I love how Bridge uses this picture. I love how they use this picture. Ever since I showed you that picture, Simon, Bridge has been using it. You guys are doing a great job, so thanks for using it. I don't always like what comes after the picture, but I love that you use the picture because it's a great picture that shows people working together, and we work together with the governor to get Selfridge done. But what's your question?
Yeah, so admittedly I wasn't watching from Florida, I was watching on the live stream.
Oh, sure.
Fair to say today, kind of a painful experience for you.
No, it's not. I mean, I think Democrats are really going to regret their votes today. I mean, you look at this, House Democrats are voting against a bill that would stop kids from having their cell phones in the classroom. And we talk a lot about how important it is for kids to get a good education. Well, they got to be paying attention. And we got to get the cell phones out of the classrooms. And a lot of these school districts aren't doing anything about it. So coming up with a statewide rule about how cell phones are handled in schools so these kids don't have them in the classroom and they're learning. And then it's a really, I mean, there is a date coming up in September. You guys are all, talking about the budget. Well, there's a date that tracks very close with the budget too, where we're going to have to extend this timeline so prosecutors can file all these cases against all of these criminals that are about to be let out of prison, violent criminals. Extending that timeline so these people don't walk out on the streets without the prosecutor having the opportunity. I mean, you look at Wayne County. Wayne County, there's no way Wayne County is going to meet this deadline to file all these cases to keep all of these murderers and violent criminals off their streets. We tried to extend the deadline. Their Democrat prosecutor agrees with us on this. We gave them an amendment that would make it so that they weren't serving the sentences stacked, but they were serving them concurrently, which is what they asked for. We were trying to get this done and work in good faith today. I think Democrats will regret that vote if it leads to violent criminals increasing the violent crime rates in their cities. And when you look at these places like Saginaw, Flint, and Detroit, they're some of the most violent cities in the country. I think they could really benefit from this policy we were going to vote on today. And then, the education scores in Michigan are not good, and the public wants these cell phones out of the classroom. I think they're going to regret that. I think they're going to regret not giving some of their members the opportunities to move bills through the House that we presented them today. I can say we really tried everything we could, and we were just not dealing with a group that wanted to get things done today. So it's disappointing, but I do think the voters will hold them accountable for these votes.
Yeah, are you willing to let votes just hang out then if you don't have what's needed to take it over the line? Is this, I guess, what I'm curious is this emblematic of what we might see going into the middle of September as the budget deadline?
Well, when Democrats tell us they're going to vote for bills, we're going to give them the opportunity to vote on those bills. We're not going to let them off the hook with no votes. Right? I mean, we had commitments from these Democrats. They were going to vote for these bills, and some of them walked on votes, and we weren't going to allow that happen at the end.
Speaker of Representative Whitmer talked about the possibility of a resolution that would punish or dock pay representatives who don't show up to vote. Are you in support of a resolution like that?
She hasn't discussed that with me. The resolution that I do endorse is the one that Mayor Duggan talked about. Mayor Duggan talked about having a new law, a resolution that would stop take the politicians' pay away when you get past budget deadlines. I endorse that because I know from experience being in the room that if we had had that policy, I would have got a deal done by July 1. We would have done it very easily. Governor Whitmer was engaged and ready to make a deal. I was ready to make a deal. And I think with the increased pressure of politicians losing their pay if a deal's not done, Senate Democrats would have stayed at the table. The talks would have accelerated more quickly, and we would have got a deal done. So I endorse that resolution. I haven't given thought to Rep. Leitner's idea.
Sure. I guess following up on what you just said, do you have a timeline for when the general fund budgets for departments are going to be presented in the House?
Well, we'll see them very soon. I mean, I think what's important, and this is something I've been talking.
Very soon.
Yeah. Well, I think what's important, as I was about to say, is I've talked for a while about these effects of the One Big Beautiful Bill. We got a House Fiscal report. So we're looking through those, and we're looking at how to incorporate those things, to his point. I think we need to look at including no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security. I don't know if we can get there. We're still running the numbers, but I think, the businesses get them automatic. It'd be nice if the taxpayers get them automatic. I think a lot of taxpayers are going to be surprised when they say no tax on tips, but you're paying a state tax on tips. So I think if we can look at those, I think to really amplify the effect of the One Big Beautiful Bill, which is a really great bill. So we're working on those things. I'd also say, those of you that saw off the record, Matt Maddock is still having a lot of meetings looking at the waste, fraud, and abuse, and we're incorporating a lot of his findings into our budgets. He's doing a great job, by the way.
Speaking of Representative Maddox's comments on the record, he said that he felt that
Well, we tried to take action today on issues that I thought really were important to the public, prohibiting the cell phones in schools, and also stopping all these violent criminals from being on the streets later this year. So we're trying to move bills forward. I think House Democrats should have helped us. I think they're going to regret not helping us. Those were things the public really wants to see. We issued many subpoenas this week all over state government to get answers for the taxpayers, to hold the departments accountable. We're working through our budget process. I mean, I mentioned we passed a bill that would put another $100 million into northern Michigan for the cleanups there in the lower northern Michigan. We've moved education plans through the House that would focus on real life skills and science of reading. We've moved a roads plan, something that hasn't happened in a long time, over 10 years. The whole time Whitmer's been here, no one has moved a roads plan, and she's given me credit for that. So we're moving a lot of big things, and many are bipartisan, but these legislative Democrats are jamming these things up for political reasons, and the public's going to suffer because of that. I mean, when was the last time they were here, you know? And so they're not working over the summer. We're here in the summer. I'm doing press conferences. You see our committees meeting. We're doing as much activity as we can. I just wish we had more partners that we could work with, like we are with Governor Whitmer. Yeah.
Speaker, just to return briefly to the federal tax bill, given that Michigan businesses will pay less state taxes under that law, do you think businesses should be part of the roads bill, some sort of tax increase there, whether it's the corporate income tax or other things we can afford?
Yeah, well, you know, I do think we should always look at these tax credits and see which ones are needed and which ones are not as we're trying to, you know, right, I mean, I think our principles of taxation are low rates broadly applied. So I do think we should look at some of those that businesses are getting. And that's something that we're continuing to look at. I also feel that one way that the big corporations can contribute to fixing the roads is by surrendering their mega credits. They can do that voluntarily. We've demonstrated that the House agrees with that in a bipartisan vote. And also, you're not going to see the SOAR fund move forward. You won't see that in a budget this year. So, you know, if we can take away a lot of these big corporate giveaways, things that are going to specific businesses but are not going to everyone, then I think that we'll have a more fair tax code, and we'll also have the money to fix our roads. And I just say, no one asked me about this, but I'll just say it. I was very engaged in the Project Grit the whole time, and I'll just point out that I had conversations with the company. I received a briefing shortly after Governor Whitmer did by the same people. And I very strongly disagree with the narrative that tariffs are the reason for this. I'll just point out that this company recently had some changes, right? When we started, it was Western Digital, and then it became SanDisk. They have different board members now than when this started. This thing started under the Biden administration. Biden didn't get it done before he left, right? I know that both myself and Governor Whitmer were committed to trying to get it done. The One Big Beautiful Bill has a 35% tax credit in it for chips manufacturing, and this plant would have benefited from that. And that's a pretty significant tax credit that really they would have benefited from. So I think they were asking, first of all, for a lot of money, and I thought it was very interesting. If we did slides, I would have put this up. So people that did not receive the information that I did, people like John Cherry, people that were not involved in this intimately like I was, like John Cherry, the first thing they do, and who's this guy in the Democrat caucus? I don't even know him. Jasper Martis? This guy, no one is talking to this guy, okay? And this guy's not in a room. He's not having these negotiations, okay? And these guys come out and blame Trump. I just want you to know, the company had nothing but positive things to say about Trump and his administration to us. They also had positive things to say about the state of Michigan, right? We really tried to land this deal. The federal government tried to land this deal. It's something that I talked personally with President Trump about, with Howard Lutnick, the governor did. So, there was a lot going on here. But these guys, I just think it's interesting. John Cherry blames Trump, okay? And then when Bridge tells him how much the incentives are, he had no idea. Do you notice that? He had no idea. His quote was, "I'm still wrapping my brain around that," okay? So I saw this response in Bridge from these legislative Democrats, and their mind is blown by the amount of incentives, right? I mean, you saw that in Bridge, how big these incentives were, and many of them would not have voted for it, okay? So I'll just say this about that. I think everyone wanted to make a deal here, okay? But the price of the deal matters, right? It's like chips manufacturing in Michigan has a benefit, right? And there was a national security benefit to this. Having these chips produced in America is why they put that big tax credit in the One Big Beautiful Bill, right? It's why the CHIPS Act was passed. There was a strategic benefit to having this in Michigan, and that's why we were all working so hard to make it happen. But that strategic benefit isn't unlimited money, right? It isn't unlimited money from the federal government and unlimited money from the state government. You have to get a return on investment for taxpayer. You have to say, okay, at this price, we aren't going to expend all of our money. We aren't going to have to raise the corporate income tax, something that Governor Whitmer proposed. We aren't going to, keep growing this federal deficit beyond what's reasonable. And so at some point, it has to be a good deal. And so that it shouldn't be an unlimited deal. And in my case, we wouldn't support an unlimited deal. We needed to see numbers that worked for Michigan. And I think when you look at the federal administrations, they needed to see numbers that worked for them too. But with this company in particular, and by the way, they're in some kind of a freeze period where they can't comment on this. And I get all these things where they say to me, the company says, and it's, no, that's what Governor Whitmer said, right? The Democrats are trying to frame this. But I'll point out that these guys were just seeing what they could get. They were asking for the moon, seeing what they could get. The One Big Beautiful Bill passes, and then their board says, you know what? Let's wait to see whether we make an investment or not. Let's wait. Maybe we didn't get all the incentives that we wanted, or maybe we want to see, the future. They have some new board members, but I just want you to know, no one ever brought up tariffs. Nobody said anything negative to us about President Trump. They only talked about how cooperative and helpful his administration was. And if this freeze is ever lifted on him, I think you'll hear them say that. So, I would encourage you to stop quoting people like Jasper Martis and John Cherry, because they weren't involved in this at all. So.
So what did the company specifically tell you then? You said you talked to them.
Yeah, well, they have new board members. I put out a quote. I mean, when we started, it was Western Digital. It's SanDisk now. So these are some different people making this decision than when it started. This thing started under the Biden administration and had been going on for years. And essentially, I think they're looking at it and saying, we're not sure we're going to make an investment. But they were very clear that Trump's administration was helpful and was working with them. And you saw that in the One Big Beautiful Bill. I mean, they were literally lobbying for an increase in the tax credit for chips, and they got it, 35%, which was a big deal. So it's not just how much money's in the CHIPS Act. It's, what is the tax credit was a big part of this, and they came through in the One Big Beautiful Bill. And then you look at what are the incentives Michigan can do, what are the incentives the federal government can do, what's in the tax credit. And I'd say while we were evaluating the effect of that, because what we were trying to figure out, we're trying to get the best deal for the taxpayers. When that tax credit increased so much on the One Big Beautiful Bill, my first thought is, well, maybe now we can kind of reevaluate some of these incentives, because look, in other states, they're getting major investments in semiconductors, and that was before the One Big Beautiful Bill. So that's why this argument doesn't work for me. I mean, these are expansions on the CHIPS plan in New York and Idaho that we lost out on. And then the one in Arizona. I mean, they keep growing it. What is it called? The Taiwanese Semiconductor Company, and what's that? Yeah, TSMC is growing and expanding, and now with this one big beautiful bill, you're going to see it expand even more. I think you're going to see more chip production as a result of that. So it's really Michigan that's standing out here as the one that it didn't go through on. I mean, that's what we're seeing, and I think it was partially because of our regulatory and tax policies and our energy policies, right? The costs. And then can you buy down the costs with enough incentives? And you saw $6 billion is what some estimates had it at. And you know what I mean? That's a lot of incentives. And they looked at everything and said we're not ready to do it. But nobody said anything about Trump. So that, and I think when you look at what's going on in the other states, it's safe to say that's not what other states are seeing. So I do think that we should, do a little more research on these things as we're reporting them. Yeah.
Speaker Hall, do you think that Epstein file should be released?
Yeah, that's funny. You guys just, but see, could you ever get any of these other people to talk to you? I mean, no one knows where Winnie Brinks is. Although I do talk to her, so I know where she is, but I won't tell you because you guys don't think I talk to her. I support President Trump and his administration, and I believe what he said, which is, like, for example, I mean, the media is really not covering the things that Tulsi Gabbard's finding about the involvement of the Obama administration in some of these hoaxes against President Trump. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if the Democrats were involved in kind of some of the narratives that are out there right now. All right, well, did you guys miss these? Beth didn't. Oh. All right, well, I don't know how you reported without me, but maybe you guys will write about something today. So we'll see you again soon, hopefully very soon. Oh, boy. All right, you guys good? Great.